Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for and I will make a note, it's Tuesday, October 14th on our agenda, should be read. And we're all good. Don't worry about it. It happens. No worries at all. Thank you very much for taking care of that. So we've called the meeting to order at 1 p.m. I would ask council at this time if you have any added items to the agenda. I would ask Councillor Blatz.
Just for clarity, I see that we have a closed session for a board update, and I also have a board update. Would that fall under the same, or do I have to amend the agenda?
Thank you, CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you. No, given the board update on there, it's for the SRD Wastewater Commission. I believe your board update is for the Water Commission. So I believe as long as we specify, one motion would be fine for both updates.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing that with council, Councillor Blatz. Okay, if I'm going around the table, then I see no added items for the agenda. Very good. I'll move down to item B, please. 1B, adoption of the agenda as presented. Consensus? Very good. We have consensus for the agenda. Item 2A, adoption of the previous minutes, please, for September 22, 2025. Does council have questions, deletions, additions? Consensus then? We have consensus for September 22, 2025. Moving to page 6, please, of your agenda. We're at excuse me, item 3A, and this is bylaw 2025-13, Municipal Development Plan Amendment, and bylaw 2025-14, Land Use Bylaw. I will just slowly note that based on the feedback, administration has prepared for us a number of amendments for council's consideration prior to a final adoption of the bylaws, and these amendments are presented in attachment 3, once again, council members, in attachment 3 of your agenda. So the process will be that as there are many motions to consider for the land use bylaw, administration recommends that each are discussed separately, and you've read that in your agenda, and then voted on before moving on to the next topic. All amendment motions that are approved would be added to the bylaw, and those defeated would not. Administration will type up any new amendments proposed by a councillor so that it can be displayed on the screen during the motion. So that is the format we will be using. And I'll turn it over to CEO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So Kyle to my left will lead us through this. Just a brief note on procedure. Given that the MDP to date has received no official amendments and the actual MDP bylaw before you is just an update to the 2020, we'll propose, so after Kyle says a few words on it, to put those 3 readings or 2 remaining readings forward for consideration first, and then we'll get into the larger topic of the LUB and its proposed amendments, if that works for yourself, Mayor Dahl.
Go ahead, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just a quick question. So we would be going through the first amendments that are within the agenda package, and then if we propose any other ones, we'll deal with them after that. Is that correct?
That's what I understand.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now Kyle will start with the MDP, and feel free to ask questions on that part.
Thank you. Yes, work on rewriting the land use bylaw and then preparing amendments to the municipal development plan has been ongoing for over a year with our consultant, ISL. First reading of these bylaws was given on August 25th, and a public hearing was held on September 8th. Feedback from council and members of the public during that public hearing and other engagement sessions has led to the documents today. For the municipal development plan, as the CAO mentioned, it's just some minor amendments, some formatting changes, updating of statistics and things like that for population estimates and projections. There's not much for significant changes in substance of the municipal development plan. And as such, during all the engagement, we really didn't have too much feedback or amendments based on the draft. So there are no amendments for the municipal development plan today that differ from the draft. And therefore, the recommendation is that that bylaw, 2025-13, be given second and third reading.
Thank you very much. I'll open the floor for council if you have any questions for Kyle. Seeing none, and please, I'd entertain a motion for second reading. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that bylaw 2025-13 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Walsh for third and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2025-13 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it right back to you again. Thank you. Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So moving on to the land use bylaw, 2025-14. As stated, there are a number of amendments we've prepared. So I'll start with the first one, and that being the redlined edits from the public hearing. So this is what the draft land use bylaw has been at the previous committee of the whole meeting, and then here today. The edits are just cleaning up the number of the list of districts. So in the first draft, going back to first reading, the list of districts shows the current bylaw districts and then the proposed ones so that it's easier to see how they transition from one to the next. In the final bylaw, the current land use bylaw districts don't need to be in there as listed because they won't be in the bylaw and it will just create confusion years down the road. So those were cleaned up. There were minor changes to the mixed use center district, to the purpose statement there. And a new definition was created for contractor services, which has been added to the general commercial district. This contractor services definition is similar and part of what would be called the industrial light definition that exists as a use in industrial districts. But we didn't want to transfer everything that could be done in a light industrial district under that use to the general commercial district. So this is specifically for contractor services to have their office and shop, like a plumber or like that type of thing where it's not really, there's no like large-scale manufacturing taking place there. It's purely for their storefront, maybe a showroom, like lots of, like I mentioned plumbers, but like tiling shops, things like that. So there's a number of places in town that would fit this already, and then this came up during engagement with a local business owner who was looking to establish in the commercial district rather than the industrial. So that's what that has been added for and added to the general commercial district. So the motion for this one, is quite simple. It's just that council, the recommended motion is the council accept the redlined edits for inclusion in bylaw 2025-14.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. By the way, Mr. Sloan is our municipal land use planner, and I'll open the floor if council has any questions for him. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Mr. Sloan. So in the original document that we were sent, I believe it was August 25th, And in it, in the middle of the section, like it had the old district and then like it would have, say, what will now be traditional neighborhood districts. Will it have still that middle section that says it was R1 or R2 or R3? Because I think that gives some clarity and context to people who are looking at what it used to be. We don't have to have everyone listed, I understand, individually. But if that middle section is, excuse me, still there, I think that would, give some clarity to people who are looking at it. And maybe that's included, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but if you could please just give me some reasoning for that, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your question. I don't believe it was the intent to have that in there, and perhaps it is worth keeping the previous bylaws districts in there for reference. I believe in the redlined version, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I believe that was taken out.
Go ahead, Councillor Blatz.
Yes, thank you, because that was kind of the reasoning for my question, and particularly when we're looking at the RLD, which will be the one that is R1, I think that that's very important for people to have that clarity on it, because I know as we know, many people wanted us to leave R1 as R1, and any new developments going forward would be under the RTD designate or development plan number. So I think that would be good. If I need to make that amendment, I will do so. If we will need to have an amending motion for that.
Thank you, C.O. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you. So just to clarify with Councillor Blatz, the purpose is to provide the reader with the former R1 districts overlapping with the new names, just for continuity. Okay. Then may I recommend, if this is the motion council is happy with for the redlined edits, that once at the end of the clause bylaw 2025-14 as amended, and we could add that specificity in there as well as another red line edit. It may not appear right away. We do have to build that map, so it may take a few weeks to come out, but some of our changes may take a little while to produce into visual format as well.
I'll go over to Deputy Mayor Ryan, and if you have something, I'll come back to you, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'm just a quick question from you, through you to Legislative Clerk Marcy McKinnon. Is it possible, I'm not sure if it is or not, to do a split screen on this in order to show what those redlined edits are? At this point, people who are sitting in the audience, people who are watching, are not going to be following along with any of these amendments if we can't show what the amendments are. And frankly, I don't have them in front of me either, so I'm just wondering if it's possible to do a split screen at all. And maybe we need to have that with a question asked by the IT. Thanks.
Go ahead, CO.
We can't do split screen, but we can bring up a separate screen. Just Kyle can get it working. So if you, Mayor Dahl, if you want to go through the rest of the questions, we can bring up the visual display.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I don't know what the red line ones are. I mean, I read them on the weekend, but through the website, but with them not being in the package, it might be confusing for people.
Excuse me, yes, we do. We have, that was Deputy Mayor Ryan, and then Councillor Walsh, and then yourself? No, okay.
Yeah, my question was along Councillor Blatz. We've changed names, we're using traditional legacy, and I'm thinking, yeah, that can cause confusion, especially within a few years from now. Rather than changing a bylaw, why can't we just put that in definitions so that people can see what, it just make it much simpler, and carrying forward, yeah, I can see people getting confused what we mean by legacy and traditional, because it'll get lost pretty quick.
Other questions from council at this time while we wait for the split screen? It's going to be a surprise where it comes up. There we go. Councillor Cummings?
So basically what we're looking at here in this chart is what Councillor Blatz has asked us to not redline, and to keep this chart intact and follow through with all of the rest of the red lines that we've seen and studied and understood, but keep this red line and remove this red line. Sorry, not keep it, remove this red line. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Councillor Blatz?
I was referring down to the center line, you know, so where we have the new descriptions, say, for example, where it's the residential transit, traditional neighborhood where we've got, like right where there, where it says R2, if we left the R2 and R3 kind of in that column, and then where we will have the new, which will be RLD, which will be the R1, you know, which will be the low-density residential legacy district, leave that center one with just the old districts and the new names on either side, like on the one side, and what they mean. Did that make sense to you, Councillor Cummings?
If you want to answer the question from Councillor Blatz, and then we'll go to CEO Williams.
Yeah, for me, it's just, there's a couple of red lines in there that make sense because we've removed those sections, but whether we keep the old district names and the acronyms and the new district names and acronyms, to me, the whole chart, just, it would probably be easier for us just to not redline what doesn't need to be redlined out of that and leave the chart in its entirety. Because again, some people may not understand what the acronyms are and understand what the words are. So I think it might be easier for administration just to take the red lines that need to go out and leave all of the nomenclature on both sides, just for ease of their purpose on this one, rather than having to recreate an entire chart. They can just do the actual red lines that are needed instead of the changes that they had proposed.
CEO Williams, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mayor Dolan. Through you, to Councillor Cummings' point, that's where I was going to get at as well. We think we understand both Councillor Blatz's and Councillor Walsh's thoughts. We would leave with our consultants to design something that would not be interpreted as, you know, confusing to the reader, but I think we do understand the amendment proposed as well, that you want to see, or the reader should be able to see relatively easily what areas have changed and what new zoning used to be and what's it called now. So I think this chart would be a bit too confusing probably to put in, for example, but I'm sure we can design something if you're good leaving it with us to build out that clarity.
Deputy Mayor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolly, and through you to CEO Williams. Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying about this chart, because to me, on the chart, if we're looking at the stuff that's in the red lines, is that being eliminated or is that being included? I don't know right now. At this point, I'm kind of confused myself, and so obviously other people who are just picking it up for the first time would be confused. So I know that council has said we want to keep R1, and on here, it's totally lined out all the way across, so that doesn't show that R1 is staying R1. So if we could make sure at some point where you find the best way of describing, whether it's in the definitions as Councillor Walsh has mentioned, or whether we create a chart that makes it easier to read, one way or the other, it needs to be simplified so that we keep R1 as whatever it has been all the way along. And when you start saying traditional, people would think that R1 is traditional, R2 is a traditional, R3 is, so it needs to be defined. Thanks.
Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And just my brief question, I agree with the nature of the discussion. My only comment would be this might be a case where unfortunately more might be better than less, in the sense of I would even take it beyond R1, R2, R3 if we can, if we feel so inclined based on input from the consultants in terms of single family dwelling reference, because even use of R1, R2, R3, I think for some people is unclear. So to the extent that we could say, if we're talking R1 as single family dwelling, to me, that brings all sorts of clarity. Thank you.
Councillor Blatz?
Yes, thank you for those comments, because I understood that we were going to get, I didn't mean for us to keep all of the red lined areas. I was only referring to any changes we made to keep that center line, that are designated to that, such as I stated earlier, you know, where we're going to do the RLD, then leave the R1 in the middle, and then what the definition, you know, is beside it. And I understand that we can't have all the redacted stuff in there. That would definitely be too confusing. I was just looking for clarity for people looking at it down the road.
Thank you. Was there anything further we wanted to add to the redlined edits? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Mayor, I believe that the process, as you described earlier, was that we would now make a motion as described on the screen here today, and I'm willing, before we move on to the next one here. So I'm ready to do that motion if you'd like.
Prefer that. Thank you, Councillor Cummings, for reminding me.
I move that council accept the red line edits for inclusion in bylaw 2025-14 as amended.
Very good. No further questions? Okay, Deputy Mayor.
just a quick question to Councilor Cummings. So you amended as you're saying how administration sees fit to amend it based on our conversation we just had.
Yes.
Very good. I will now ask the question then. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you again. Moving on to amendment number 2. This is what is currently R1 land use district. So amendment number 2 here is what we were directed at committee of the whole last week to preserve the R1, the existing R1 district in their own district rather than moving them into RTD. There is a link. Yeah, the working copy of this district has been drafted, which moved the existing R1 district into the format of the new bylaw. And if I need to pull it up on my computer, I could do that too. Okay, I'll pull this up and put it on screen.
I guess I should have my mic on. Yeah, I had to scroll down a page or so, and then I got the 6.5 low-density residential legacy district on the link that you provided. Keep scrolling down. There you go.
Okay, so here we have the district on screen with the current, or the formatting of the new bylaw. So these are all the uses that are currently in the R1 district. The standards of the district as drafted here are moved to the current way that standards are presented in the new one. And then for the eligibility section, if you scroll down a bit, this explains how this is parcels that are currently in the R1 district can be or will be moved into this RLD, but it's not a district, like in new development at the edge of town would not be able to zone into this. It's purely for what is currently R1 in town.
Councillor Cummings?
Thanks. If we could just scroll up a little bit to the eligibility criteria under 1A. Should this be, and I might just be reading it incorrectly, only parcels designated as R1 upon initial adoption of this bylaw can be in this new district or RLD. Does that, because right now we don't have any districts in RLD, so when we adopt the bylaw, we can't have RLD until we have RLD. So I think that needs to be changed from RLD to R1 in that sentence.
The purpose statement at the very top is where it explains which parcels will be moved into RLD, but we can certainly reword the eligibility phrase, but the purpose statement is where it identifies that they are R1 parcels under Land Use Bylaw 01-23, the current Land Use Bylaw. And this is a Word document. We can make edits right now on it.
Is that everything, Councillor Cummings?
And just respond. Thanks. Yeah, if it's up in the purpose statement, I didn't notice the designation there. I don't need a designation in eligibility. That's fine then. Thanks.
Yes, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to the development officer, just to confirm from our committee of the whole meeting a week or so ago. And so again, in this district, and I know we're not talking about secondary suites, but I guess we are talking about secondary suites, if that makes sense. So in this new district, a single secondary suite would be permitted with the requirement for, I think, 1 parking per unit. And then anything above that would come to council for discretionary, correct?
Thank you for the question. That can change depending on the conversation for the secondary suite amendment. So once this district is included into the draft bylaw with motion number 2, then the conversation about secondary suites will affect where it goes in here.
Before I come to you, Councillor Cummings, I'll go to CAO Williams and then back to you, okay? Okay, go ahead. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you. There's a difference between what you have on the screen and what I have on the screen, and that what I have on the screen, those 3 columns have titles. Permitted uses on the left, discretionary uses administration in the middle, and discretionary uses council on the right. So the link that you gave us has that table with those title heads. I think that's where you see the difference there, Councillor Wilson. That center column has discretionary uses for secondary suites. Your explanation of that being taken care of in the next motion after this one makes a lot of sense to me. So I just wanted to point out the difference between your document and the document that's actually in the agenda package showing those headings.
Go ahead, CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'm not sure why it's not translated into whatever we have logged in here. Yeah. So just to clarify, so with this particular amendment, it was the discussion that was held committee of the whole that council wants to, for lack of better term, grandfather the existing R1 district. So whatever zoning changes are made with this land use bylaw won't affect existing R1s, as they won't affect existing zoning in communities under area redevelopment plans. So, but that is not to say that existing R1 areas, like let's say East Olds, for example, parcels that are currently R3 will stay R3. We're not changing the zoning at all. So it is kind of static. So I believe that's the direction we received. Apologies for the lack of headers, but this is taken essentially from the existing land use bylaw. So that was the intention of us presenting that today. And as Kyle Sloan just referenced, depending on what council's decision is with the secondary suite in the following motion, that's the only thing that could be adjusted here. But for all intents and purposes, this is to keep R1 as R1. We just name it legacy for communication, for the sake of nothing else.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I was just going to make a motion.
Thank you.
Would you like me to proceed?
Please, Deputy.
Thank you. I move that the low-density residential legacy district, RLD, be added to the draft bylaw 2025-14 as section 6.5 as amended.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ryan. Do we have questions? I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Move forward.
Thank you again. Amendment number 3 is regarding secondary suites. So again, at Committee of the Whole, administration was directed, or we discussed the number of secondary suites, the number of secondary suites that would be allowed per parcel, as well as who would be the approval authority for each. Based on direction that stemming from that meeting, administration has prepared the below breakdown of how secondary suites are to be listed in the various districts. And this is where in the RLD district, we can choose now where the first suite goes, where the second suite goes, if there's a second suite, and all of that.
And all of that, et cetera, et cetera. Do we have questions from councils at this time? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just wanted to state my opinion with regards to the discretionary use section on the secondary suite. On the second suite. I think I mentioned this already at the Committee of the Whole, my concern about this going to be admin using the discretionary use as opposed to council. I think if you're looking at a second suite in a R3, or R2, or even a R1 in some new areas, you might want to have that as councils making that decision, simply because there's already one as a permitted use, and the second one could be controversial depending on how and where it is being done. And I think that council should take on that responsibility of approving that in that case.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm going to beat a dead horse here again about the importance of area redevelopment plans, or what I like to call neighborhood redevelopment plans. Because I mentioned in the Committee of the Whole meeting that if we have 2 secondary suites in an R1, we all of a sudden have 3 homes or 3 households in an R1 district, which is what most people were complaining about in the first place. So having that area redevelopment, this chart is fine with me. Management or council shouldn't be making every decision. That's why we give the authority to others to make decisions. But when we look at the area redevelopment plan, that's the way we protect our neighborhood integrity and prevent these R1 areas, or people that want to have legacy R1 style homes in their neighborhood or on their street have that protection to prevent secondary suites, because again, an area redevelopment plan can say there shall be no secondary suites, period, on our street, because on our street we don't want that. And that's where that type of protectionism is to be done. The land use bylaw, I'm not so convinced that that's the place where we protect neighborhoods. But again, if we, one way or the other, council or administration, council very rarely turns down the application of a secondary suite. I don't think we have once turned down a secondary suite. So if it moves to council, it's fine with me. If it stays with administration, it's fine with me. I just, again, beating that dead horse, area redevelopment plans.
Well, thank you for sharing those concerns. You look like you have a question, Councillor Walsh.
No, I'm quite happy with the chart as it is.
Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I move that secondary suites be added to the list of permitted and discretionary uses in residential and mixed-use district of the draft bylaw 2025-14 as shown in the table below.
Thank you very much. I see no, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I guess my brief comment is I would tend to agree with Councillor Ryan, and we did chat about this briefly. Council is elected by the residents. I understand the point, as we've made a couple times through our discussions around area structure plans and area redevelopment plans and everything else, but ultimately, we're accountable to the people. I do agree with Councillor Ryan's point around having that secondary suite approval reside with council. Our world seems to be moving fairly fast these days, right, with new builds, residential builds, and we've certainly heard from residents' concerns around parking and on-street parking. So I would agree that I would like to see, at least for those two RLD, RTD, those discretionary approvals reside with council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Are there any other thoughts on, before I call, go ahead, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just want to state that I agree with what both Councillor Ryan and what Councillor Wilson have stated here, and I do believe that RLD and RTD should be discretionary use council, and I do understand what Councillor Cummings is saying, but I think this way it gives definite, clear clarity to people who are applying that this will be the process and that we will be reviewing it at a council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I should just go around the table then and get other thoughts from, go ahead,
Thank you, Mayor Dahl.
Councillor
And-
Daly.
And I agree as well. I think we had lengthy discussion at the committee of the whole about this, and I thought that's where we landed, was with council having discretionary use, at least at the RLD, but I might be not remembering exactly our complete discussion there. But I would agree that with the RLD, discretionary use for both of those should be council, and I believe on the RTD that that second suite should be council as well. I would say, in my opinion anyway, because as Councillor Wilson said, it all lands back with us, right? We're the ones that answer to the public. So
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Cummings, and then we'll go to CEO Williams.
Well, that's four. I would ask maybe Councillor Walsh wants to do a friendly amendment to his motion, because that's the consensus of council, is to change the RTD second suite discretionary use to council and the RLD first suite's discretionary use to council.
I would ask that of Councillor Walsh, because I truly do recall the discussion we all had as well, to which each one of you council stated that we did agree that, as Deputy Mayor Ryan said, that council should stand in those seats, and as Councillor Cummings said. Go ahead, CEO Williams.
So just for clarity's sake, in your current land use bylaw, R1, which will become RLD, the first suite is discretionary use administration. So, and just to remind council, the reason why we're going this way, the two things, we get very minimal issues from secondary suite approvals, hence why we kept RLD still discretionary use admin. Second, approval timelines, if you recall, right now internally we're averaging about 7 to 8 days for a turnaround time in DPs. Council's averaging 25 days, or 20 to 25 days. So with the RTD, for example, I believe if council wants to take the second suite into discretionary council, it's totally in your purview. Based on the last X amount of years, certainly 3.5 of approval efficiency and lack of issues, administration recommends keeping the first suite in RLD status quo, which is discretionary use administration, given that we are maintaining parking minimums at 1 on site per secondary suite.
Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Since I brought this up in the first place, I was just talking about the second suite being under council preview for the discretionary use. We rarely have second suites come to town at all, come to our attention at all. But if it does, this is just one way of having the rules already set in stone. I don't have a problem with the first, the RLD being a discretionary use, given the conversation we had at COTW last week. So I'm just interested in having the amendment to the motion, if Councillor Walsh is in favor, just to change the discretionary use from admin to council for this second suite under RTD.
I have no problem accepting a friendly amendment. I just would like to point out, even the discretionary use from administration is still appealable to council, so that would be my thought. But if it's going to fail because of that, I have no issue with changing RTD to discretionary use council.
The living document, so the good news is that there is a future. So we now have a friendly amendment on the floor. Is everyone clear? I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. All right, now we will move forward, please, with the Alcohol Production Amendment 4.
Thank you again. This is a conversation that came up, or a topic that came up at Committee of the Whole and in previous correspondence as well, regarding alcohol production, which is a defined use in the draft land use bylaw. But in the MUC district, mixed use center, it was not listed. And in that district, what was listed instead in the list of uses was two separate ones for brewery and distillery, which are not defined. So this amendment removes brewery and distillery uses from the listed uses in that district and adds alcohol production as a use. This amendment does add it as a discretionary use. And the reason for that being discretionary rather than permitted is just so that administration has more authority in applying conditions to the development permit, because there are hazards associated with these uses, specifically distillery, when it comes to fire and building code. So that's the reason for it being discretionary rather than permitted, is just for that little extra oversight in how the development can move forward. Regarding the conversation about co-locating alcohol production use with eating and drinking establishments, that's absolutely commonplace, and most alcohol production facilities, I would say in Alberta, do have eating or drinking establishments as part of them. But because those are also listed uses, we can accept a development permit that is for alcohol production and eating and drinking establishment, and deal with that as one application. It wouldn't have to be separate, but it does help us understand what exactly the applicant is looking for with their development, and if they do want the eating and drinking establishment component of that, there's parking minimum considerations based on the number of seats that they have. So it just helps us process the permit application more effectively by leaving them separate but allowing people to apply for both in one.
Thank you. And just for the sake of the gallery as well, perhaps even council, the MUC means mixed use center. So you're aware of what we're talking about. Thank you. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have to thank Councillor Ryan for bringing this one up at the Committee of the Whole, because I've had a lot of thought on it recently. When I hear the word alcohol production, I think of industrial alcohol production like ethanol. And when I think of breweries and distilleries and meaderies and wineries, I think of something completely different. And I don't see a distinction with either or the previous definitions and the current definitions. And I know the talk has been, or there has been talk of an ethanol production facility possibly coming to town. And to me, that would be a unique enough type of development for the same reasons that Kyle mentioned a moment ago about the safety concerns of a large-scale alcohol industrial production facility. So my concern is not that we've merged alcohol production with breweries and distilleries or confuse those two things together. It's making an incomplete list of brewery, distillery, when we could have, you know, somebody might want to make a meadery in Olds, who knows, or a winery, and those are distinctively different than an industrial alcohol production facility. So I'm wondering if we need to develop more of a robust definition of both, where we have an industrial alcohol production definition and zoning rules and where that can be very specifically. And then the craft alcohol production facility, maybe we can identify those two things as two separate entities, craft and industrial production of alcohol, so that we can, because I don't want an ethanol production facility in an MUC. And by the definition that we're looking at now, we could have a industrial scaled alcohol production facility in the MUC, because we've switched to the definition of alcohol production rather, and no other place do we define industrial alcohol production. So I'm wondering if that's where the consultants were leaning when they said alcohol production versus brewery and distillery, because they have such different distinctions. So I'm still, I don't know where to go on this one here, because I think we do need to have an industrial alcohol production discretionary use as opposed to alcohol production discretionary use. And I don't think the amendment that we're asking for solves that problem.
Deputy Mayor, did you still wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And I kind of lean towards the way that Councilor Cummings is thinking on this. And I'm not sure whether it would have just been easier just to put in a brewery / distillery definition, and then you wouldn't have had a problem with creating what Councilor Cummings is saying, you know, large scale production compared to craft. What I'm thinking of is, when I think of a brewery and distillery, I think of what Councilor Cummings said. You know, a craft brewery where you have, you know, you go in and you sample their whatever brews they have, and you have something to eat, and those are pretty typical in other communities. Wish we had one here that was a little bit robust. But at the end of the day, I mean, to me, I just think it may have been trying to squeeze everything into one little definition, and really, this is such a simple thing, just to add a definition under your brewery distillery. But then when you do that, you'd also have to consider those two items in other districts, because we don't. All of a sudden, we switch to alcohol production once we've done with the MUC district. When we start to go into other commercial districts or industrial districts, those two words, distillery and brewery, are totally disappear. So I think it has to be that you need to focus on what you actually want to have for an alcohol production. Are you looking for the craft brewer? Are you looking at the industrial side? So I think, to me, it's still, even though you're trying to do what I've brought up, it still doesn't really work for me.
You, CAO Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you. So maybe just to talk about some of the basics of alcohol production. Director Andrew, who's familiar with the safety codes, can perhaps speak to how the Safety Codes Act, which is obviously in supremacy to our zoning bylaw, deals with the differential. So, and then Kyle can talk about the land use application side of it, and hopefully help the conversation if that works for you.
That does work, just so people that are listening would know as well. Director Protective Services, Justin Andrew, will now be speaking.
Thank you, CAO Williams, and through to the chair. In the Alberta Building Code and Fire Code, there is no differentiation between, I think, what you're referring to as what would be referred to as a micro distillery, such as a brewery or a small pub and eatery mixed with a production facility. The codes, both refer to basically distillation is one standard. So there is no industrial versus lower level indication or caricature. So the reality is it comes because any distillation process is considered an F1 hazard, which is a high hazard process. And it's because when you're making ethanol, it's got a high explosive potential. Doesn't matter about quantities. And so it's not so much about the zoning or allowing these kind of occupancies to come in or putting barriers in place. What the real issue that happens is when you mix a distillery with a public gathering place, such as an A2 occupancy, which would be what the restaurant side would be any one of them. It can be done, absolutely. It just has to be done according to the building and fire codes where there has to be fire separations. And that is one area of contention in the province, that there's lots of places around that are doing it. And there is some conflicting pieces of information there as to who is allowing it and to what degree. A lot of the distilleries like to be visual. They like the still and the production area to be visual to the eating area as the ambience of the facility. And if that's done correctly as to the code, then that can be a problematic thing. So the whole premise is that we can't create something that supersedes the building and fire codes in our bylaws. So we have to just be careful of that. So that would be my caution.
Sure, and I'll just, I pulled up the definition that we have in the draft bylaw for alcohol production. And there's certainly a conversation about that, the more industrial, like ethanol production, that type of use isn't specifically defined in here, so that's correct. But what we do have as an alcohol production definition does speak specifically to beverages. The reason it was combined into one is because of the fact that there are breweries and distilleries and meaderies and wineries and all of these things that, yes, we could define each of those separately, but we did feel that this definition captured all of them in one. And this would scale then, I guess, in terms of alcoholic beverages and how and the scale that they're produced at, that the larger scale ones, the macro breweries and things like that, would likely be more suitable in industrial parcels. That would likely be determined by the availability of land. There aren't large parcels in MUC anyways where something like that would fit. Whereas the smaller scale, the craft facilities may work in smaller areas where, such as MUC or other commercial districts, perhaps.
CEO Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. And just to finish off on the larger scale industrial use conversations, things like ethanol, which is more considered biofuel, and even large generation facilities. I don't want to say distilleries, for example, because I may not be speaking of, but those tend to be regulated by additional bodies. In ethanol's case, it's the Alberta Environment regulates them because of their emissions, and distilleries at a larger scale could also meet that threshold either through emissions or effluent. So that kind of dictates our own zoning as well, where it gets into heavy industrial, for instance. What does that superseding regulation look like? Because there's there's always things like setback requirements, residential areas for large plants, and then you get the definition of large plants, which is not something we regulate. So, long story made longer, alcohol production, as we see it in here, is largely for this, what we hope to attract as well, the more smaller scale mom and pop shop, mixed distillery or brewing with restaurant service type of atmosphere. Hopefully that answered some questions.
Thank you, because we have, I believe you had your hand up. I can't see. Okay. Councillor Wilson and then Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Dahl. Yeah, I was just going to say, when we're ready and the discussion is concluded, I'll make the motion. But my comment is based on this definition, unless either I'm too trusting or too naive or some combination of many things, unless somebody can tell me and convince me how a biofuel can wiggle their way in through this definition of beverages or brewed, distilled, as I said, I'm prepared to make a motion when we're ready.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to the CEO. Thank you. Appreciate the comments because having what Justin just said just said with regards to the definitions of the code. I'm happy with removing the brewery and distillery for the alcohol production. I just have one question for Mr. Sloan, and that would be whether or not you find that as we have these bullets underneath the production, alcohol production, would you say whether or not we need to put in a fourth bullet saying, or an eating establishment, or is that something that is just something you would handle separately totally? Just a question.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe we would handle that separately. This is more for very small scale tasting, actually at the brewery that we do have in town where you can sample and purchase, yeah, but it's not really a bar as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And at this time, I see we're ready. Councillor Wilson for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that brewery and distillery be removed as listed uses in the MUC district and replaced with alcohol production as a discretionary use administration in the draft bylaw 2025-14.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Now, we've long-winded that one. I think we all know where we're at, and it's a really good discussion. I just really like the feedback, and I'm sure we all learned a lot. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried, and thank you very much, Mr. Sloan, for your help and your staff, CEO Williams. We will now go back to the bylaw for 2025-14. I'm looking for second reading. I'm just going to go to this side now, and then we'll start with, for some reason, Daly, I'm forgetting Councillor Daly.
That's okay. Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2025-14 be given second reading as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. No questions? I'll call the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And I believe, Councillor Cummings, you had your hand up?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl.
Third and final reading?
Yep, I move that bylaw 2025-14 be given third reading as amended.
I will call the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you all for the discussion we just finished. And we will continue down the line and go to page 17 now, please, in your agenda.
Is it okay if I ask administration a quick question on this process?
That's what they're here for. Go ahead, Councillor
you.
Cummings.
So through your mayor to the CAO, given the fact that we've asked for amendments into the, and again, it's a couple of unexpected amendments, what's the timeline you figure this will be available for the public to view online?
Don't get me wrong, Kyle, but I believe maps will take us a little bit longer, but we could probably get verbiage done this week.
Yes, I believe so. Most of the amendments we've made are pretty minor. The big one was the RLD district, which we drafted ahead of time in anticipation of that. I think by the end of this week, we should have these amendments written out and inserted into the bylaw. The map will take a little bit of time, but I'm hoping by the only change they're really making to the map is creating a different color for the RLD. So that a couple weeks, we'll say, but it shouldn't take too long.
Thank you.
And thank you for your response. We're now on page 17 of your agenda. Item 3B, bylaw 2025-15, residential tax incentives. We will be looking for all readings, 3 readings today, and we will start, unless CEO Williams wishes to speak first. Do you have anything to say? Okay, well then let's just move forward, and I'd ask for first reading. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that residential tax incentive bylaw 2025-15 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you. Does Councillor have any questions for Councillor Cummings? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to administration. Do we have any sort of statistics on the use of this tax incentive?
For the first half, which is I'll call it the low density incentive because the other one's called high density, that has been used 3 times to date. 2 approved, 1 under application right now. That is for new communities, mainly the Highlands and the Vistas, to have the 3-year scaled abatement for new lease subdivided lots on the municipal portion of taxes. To date, the high density residential incentive has not yet been used.
You're welcome. We have a motion on the floor right now from Councillor Walsh for first reading and another question, Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Sorry for the late hand up there, Mayor Dahl. Just a quick question to CEO Williams. I was just wondering, is there any reason why we did the scale back at starting at the 80, like the 100 to the 80 to, it seems like you'd go 75, 50, 25, whatever. I'm just wondering why we picked those numbers. Standard for other communities doing this, or?
Yeah, fair question. Short answer is I'm not really sure. Longer answer is when policy 1003 first came to council, 2003-ish, we had taken that scale out of existing development agreements that the town had signed for both the Highlands and the Vistas developments going back a decade or more. And that was the scaled abatement in a schedule in those respective agreements. So I'm not sure of the original rationale, but that's the one that had existed prior to the policy being implemented, which, as mentioned at committee of the whole, the policy existed because the MGA didn't expressly permit it. Now it does, hence the bylaw coming forward to council to formalize it.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to the CEO, just a brief little short question. Out of curiosity, how people dependent is administering this? I'm thinking, especially when we have it going over a couple of years, without going into a lot of detail on the tax roll system and everything else, is there a possibility that a property could sit at no tax for endless years, or does that require human intervention, or is there a red flag that pops within our system? Thank you.
Good question. Through you, Mayor Dahl. The first half, low density incentive, that takes a bit more manual setup because it does tie into our tax system and it is a partial municipal only exemption. So we do have to manage that a bit more closely, but it is for a 3-year maximum or until the property changes title, which means something has been constructed and sold. So that's when the exemption ends. The high density side, which we haven't actually rolled out a full one yet, it's for a blanket, 1 year after our building department issues their certificate of completion, more or less. So it's fairly straightforward in that regard, and maximum 2 years, like for the entire project. Because sometimes you have to split tax years depending on the construction versus the valuation date, but I don't expect the high density one to be difficult to manage, and it is a maximum 24 months, and then you get what you get. But yeah, the low density one has been tricky just to automate it with our tax system. So.
All right, any more questions before we go to the motion on the floor by Councillor Walsh for first reading? All right, I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Blatz for second reading, please.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that residential tax incentive bylaw 2025-15 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you. Do we have questions? Call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. For consent for third reading, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that unanimous consent be given for third reading of the residential tax incentive bylaw 2025-15.
We have questions? I'll now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And who hasn't? Deputy Mayor Ryan for third and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the residential tax incentive bylaw 2025-15 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Now we will go to a motion, seeking a motion, please, that Council Policy 1003C, Residential Development Incentive Program, be rescinded. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that Council Policy 1003C, Residential Development Incentive Program, be rescinded.
Do we have questions? I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We will down to page 4 of your agenda. And item 3C, and this will be, just a moment, please. I think I just lost. Where are we? Here we go. Thank you. Item 3C, and this is for bylaw 2025-16 for the council and council committee meeting procedures, and also for bylaw 2025-17 committee of the whole. We are looking to give all readings. Would you like to speak to this first, C.O. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And again, just to restate what I said at last Monday's committee meeting, that the losing my train of thought here, but the FOIP and as well as the Code of Conduct, those both have changed provincially. Thank you very much. It's been a long 63 minutes. The province has changed the FOIP Act to the Access to Information Act, which is reflected in there, and it also has taken away council's ability to regulate behaviors of council and councillors. Code of Conduct bylaws are no longer eligible. So these two bylaw amendments are simply reflections of those two provincial directives. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience with me. It just seemed to kind of serendipity happen. Oh, bleep, all of a sudden. Oh, thank you very much. We'll start 25-16. Work our way. We'll start with you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council and council committee procedural bylaw 2025-16 be given first reading as presented.
Questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Deputy Mayor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move the council and council committee procedural bylaw 2025-16 be given second reading as presented.
Questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that unanimous consent be given to third reading of the Council and Council Committee Procedural Bylaw 2025-16.
Very good. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And third and final, we'll go to for the next one, Councillor Walsh. Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council and council committee procedural bylaw 2025-16 be given third reading as presented.
Very good. Thank you. Those in favor? That is carried. 2025-16 is now dealt with, and we will move down, and I would ask Councillor Walsh to please present first reading for bylaw 2025-17.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the Committee of the Whole bylaw 2025-17 be given first reading as presented.
Questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Those in favor? Thank you. Councillor Cumming?
I move that Committee of the Whole bylaw 2025-17 be given second reading as presented.
Very good. I see no questions. Call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. I'm looking for consent, please. We'll start again. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that unanimous consent be given for third reading of the Committee of the Whole bylaw 2025-17.
I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And Deputy Mayor Ryan, final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the Committee of the Whole bylaw 2025-17 be given third reading as presented.
Vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, administration. And we will now move down. Oh, yes, Councillor Cummings.
Sorry to interrupt the agenda again. Mayor, could we have a 5-minute recess before we move on to the next section?
Consent, all council? 5 minutes? Thank you. We'll call for a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Okay, folks, thank you very much. Thank you for the break. We are now on new business, page 26 of your agenda, item 4A. This is 2025 to 2028 corporate plan, and I'll head this over to CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So before council today is the first ever corporate plan for the town of Olds. Council has seen this in various versions for a lot of months now. And essentially what it is for the attending and viewing public, it is at council's direction in your strategic plan and the priorities from there. Essentially an administration business plan approved by council, kind of highlighting how administration will both action council's strategic plan and priorities, and also operate the business of the municipality and the goals and performance metrics and planning that goes into that, or will go into that, over what we have as a 3-year term. This plan is something that will be the definition of a living document. It will be updated regularly by council as priorities change, as strategic plans change, as administration recommends changes due to legislation or new information. But it basically acts as a communication tool, both from council through the CAO to the organization for respective, say, divisional business plans and for staffing, but also to the community as it speaks more to the operations of the municipality, which tends to be, let's say, the average citizen's inquiries and questions, as opposed to a strategic vision. Now, this plan is, although first draft has been painstaking and long in the making, it is meant to create a bridge between this council term and the incoming council term. If not some rationale of why things are being recommended, either at Budget 2026 or through policy updates or equipment staffing asks, a variety of things, but to provide the new council with the ability to influence that municipal operations, which tends to be, for new councils especially, or new elected officials, kind of that moment of clarity / confusion that what council does versus what administration does tends to be very misunderstood in the early parts of a council term. And I hope this document will provide not just new elected officials, but those of you who may return, with a better picture that council, through working together and setting policy direction, has a direct oversight and communication and directive role to the CAO and through me to the rest of the administration. So I won't belabor the point. The new council will take this up in very short order and be introduced to it and can accept it, decline it, defer it as much as they see fit. But I see it as not just a directive from your strategic priority for myself to complete. I do see this as a valuable exercise moving forward in the years to come to better explain to our staff and to our citizens of how we will action through operations and projects and budgets the long-term or strategic vision of town council.
Thank you very much for that introduction, CAO Williams. I'll open the floor if council has any questions to the document. It was very well presented. I'll start with Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'm just wondering through you to CAO if you're open to any additions to it.
Always.
Okay, there's just only two things that I wanted to perhaps add to the document, and or not, depending on how you want to phrase it or look at it. One is has come out during the campaigns that are going on, the election campaigns, forums, and also through Coffee with Council, was under the strategic communication, page 49. There is a list of some ideas for communication tools. And one tool that has been brought up was a topic-specific town hall, where you would just have generating just discussion with the community. And that might not be a bad idea going forward. I know that we get, we do coffee with council, but this would be a sort of a different feel for it. But you would need to have a specific topic, I think. So like perhaps the land use bylaw, say, if that had ever come to, I know we did public engagement, but you could have had some kind of a town hall with council listening to concerns and maybe have alleviated some of them, who knows. The other one would be on page 59 under advocacy. We've had discussion, this council has, with regards to the court system delays in our bylaw. One of the things at the bottom talked about the ask. The other thing I would want to see perhaps for this next council to think about would be for a resolution to Alberta Munis on this topic. When we sat down with the ladies from the Alberta Munis in the summertime, we had that conversation with them, and they thought that that would be a really good way for us to go forward. We have to make sure you know exactly what your ask is in order to create a resolution. So, you know, are we asking for additional people? Are we actually asking for a new court system to be developed where it would just list here from bylaws, you know, maybe something like that. But it's a good way of advocating, and certainly, you know, something that the next council can figure whether or not they would want to go that avenue. But I just wanted to throw those 2 points out. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Deputy Ryan. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just through you to the CEO, quick question. Just if you could share any of your thoughts. I realize, you know, it's draft and you've talked about a new incoming council happening shortly. Just your thoughts around how this would be cascaded and communicated throughout the town organization as well, and our approximately 76 employees. How and what would that look like? Because a lot of valuable information, as you said, not only for council, but as well for the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you, I'll actually jump back to Councillor Ryan's questions first, or suggestions first. I believe on your second one on advocacy, certainly that's kind of half the intention of this document too, that if under court systems delay, I was to somewheres add that the town will bring forward a draft resolution to Alberta municipalities, which is a whole process in itself. That's something the next council will have to approve, but that's kind of the point of this as well, that it acts as that bridge. So certainly, I can add that in there. It makes sense to me. It is a much larger issue than just municipal court. It does come into, yeah, a lot different. For the town hall portion as well, you're right, it's something that came up also in the last 2 budget surveys. And where we had thought on that piece was under council's annual public participation plan, which, to be fair, you only approved one so far and wasn't that robust, that the town hall topic would be brought back. But if, again, another bullet point added in there, if it's something that council's hearing around the table. One caution is that under Bill 20 last year, Provincial Bill 20, the province did limit how many what they call public hearings or public hearing type things you can have for land use related specifics. And that is, for, just like you see the minister mandate letter in your correspondence today, the province is quietly and not so quietly telling us that we have to approve more housing. So for things like the land use bylaw, we even had to be careful around how we phrase those public engagement sessions. But I think if open houses, you know, it certainly gives you some latitude. And if you think it's something you're hearing that people would appreciate, certainly that's the whole point, is try to have new ideas and accomplish them or accomplish the same ideas in different ways. So, to Councillor Wilson's question, so one thing I think, good things, staff are probably sick of hearing me saying infrastructure renewal, fiscal resilience, and long-term planning, which are the 3 themes of this corporate plan. We have presented this to the organization. We have gotten a lot of feedback from the organization. And much of this plan, specifically the divisional objective section, the staffing section, the key performance metrics section, those actually exist in the 5 divisional draft plans, which they're not quite ready to come off the press like this, but will be ready in the coming weeks for the new council. So staff have been engaged and are aware of this, but I think we have to do a stronger job or a more consistent job of communicating this as well. We did as recently as the last staff meeting a week or two ago. But you're right. I think if nothing else, give staff an idea of where the town wants to go and what you can expect, not just even as simple as, your department staffing asks to council the next 3 years or 5 years, but what the objectives and how the objectives of your department tie into the larger themes. So, but.
Thank you. So you are going, just before we move to Councillor Cummings, Councillor Blatz is next. You are going to add that addition then, that Councillor Ryan
Yeah,
suggested?
if council is fine with it, I'm fine adding a language for those. So.
Okay, very good.
I'm making notes here, so one
Thank you.
as amended would
Very
suffice.
good, very good. Thank you. So we'll go to Councillor Blatz and then Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, but my question has been answered, so I will not bog down the meeting with redundancy.
You, Councillor Cummings?
Man, now I feel like I'm bogging down the meeting. I want to congratulate the administration on the excellent work that's done here, because we've been asking for this for quite some time, and it's definitely a result of our organizational review that was done in the first bit of our term. And this is addressing so many of the issues that were brought up in that organizational review and brought up by us as councillors throughout our term. For poops and giggles, I've been reading the 1999 Cuff Report, an organizational review of the town of Olds. And this is addressing a lot of those issues that were brought up in 1999 as well. So it seems as though they're recurring problems in municipal government that have to be addressed every once in a while. So I think having a strong strategic plan, a strong corporate plan to go with that is a way to ensure that those problems don't keep repeating themselves over and over again. And I hope and hope that I'm on, but I hope that the next council certainly takes to heart what's been done here and the good work and continue with it, put their own flavor to it, but make sure that it is not just a document that I think someone said before, put on a shelf and left, but is actually used or applied throughout the entire process. So kudos to administration for doing it. I do want to address the one issue that was brought up about communication, and I think every single election term in every single election level, from federal government to municipal governments, the biggest complaint the electorate have is poor communication. I believe a couple of councillors in the past have always said that you can lead a horse to the trough, but you can't make them drink. And we've seen on average 4 to 5% community engagement in every community engagement we've put out. So I'll put it on the onus too sometimes of the citizens of our community. If they want to engage with us, the avenues are there. We've got public hearings, open houses, coffee with council. I think in one of my letter responses in the campaign trail, I put almost 15 different ways you can communicate with the town and the councillors, including our emails and phone numbers, which are public information, and yet we still have only 4% participations. So I welcome every new idea of communication, the ability to communicate with people, but people have to actually come out and communicate with us to get our response. That's the only thing I'll say on that issue, but great work all around. Thank you.
I agree 100%. It's just a full circle. How did you ever get the 1990 George Cuff report?
I have my
Anyways,
sources.
That's great. It was a good read, wasn't it? All right. Are there any further questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council accept the corporate plan as presented. As amended, actually, yeah.
And we have C.O.
Suggested.
Williams. Yes, C.O. Williams has taken those notes down, so thank you. All right, those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we are going to move slide right down the slide, down to page 63, item 4B. And this is the Committee of the Whole Policy Recommendation 903C, Playground Inspection and Maintenance, as well as 317C, needs to be rescinded. C.O. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And similar to my comments last Monday, the policy itself only has some brief additions to reference some construction standards, some labor requirements, and most importantly, this playground replacement plan, which we have updated a bit more user-friendly, mostly at the end here, which gives you just a better sense of our current, I don't know, I don't want to call it liability because playgrounds are an asset, but we do have some upcoming needs where we have to, I think, budget, but also engage the community on what the future of these spaces might be, and hopefully find some partnerships if there's available to help fund some of this. And playgrounds aren't cheap anymore.
So when you say partnerships, C.O. Williams, you specifically, in the past, I know we've always worked with community groups such as Kiwanis or there's so many, Rotary Club, anybody that's out there that's willing to help. Is that who you mean?
Exactly, yeah. Whether it's a set service club like the Rotary or Kiwanis, or whether if it's in the case of some of these parks, much more localized groups, whether it be a church organization or another type of volunteer groups. I just believe that for us to reduce the reliance on property tax dollars, because we do have to direct those into things like water, wastewater, infrastructure, and the sportsplex, but still maintaining these other important pieces of more localized community infrastructure, we have to maybe broaden our definition of partnerships. At the same time, too, communities do change, just like we all do. We age and we become younger, older, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe playgrounds aren't the correct thing anymore. So that's where I believe the community engagement can come in with, as we go down the list, we may have the opportunity, should council of the day wish to, poll the surrounding area and say, is a playground the most appropriate, or is it, in Councillor Wilson's case, his favorite pickleball pastime is more, or basketball, or a seating area, a community garden, for example. So I think there's lots of opportunity here as we expand that definition of partnership, both financial and just from a ideas point of view.
Yeah, I believe you've educated our listeners for sure. Does council have any questions or additions? Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to C.O. Williams. Just going back to your comments on community engagement for playgrounds, I think that's very important and imperative that we do that, because many neighborhoods might transition from young families to, we're to empty nesters and then start transitioning back into young families again. So I really do believe that each playground would have to be reviewed on a case-by-case analysis and not just some sort of overarching plan, because you just don't know what could happen in the future. And I think that we particularly need to build for the future and plan for the future. And I think this document will help next council understand what it is and what it costs for playgrounds and how we need to budget and proceed going forward. So thank you.
Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to echo a lot of what Councillor Blatz just said, that without community engagement, we may not, what I see here is a replacement process. And I'm going to use Neil Leatherdale Park as a perfect example because I live behind Neil Leatherdale Park and I live in that neighborhood. And when that park was built 30 years ago, the playground was built 30 years ago, there were children in our neighborhood. There are no children in our neighborhood anymore. So that need of the community to change, adaptiveness is important. Is there a way, though, the plan doesn't actually talk about that in any way. It doesn't talk at all about community engagement. It doesn't talk about changing communities and getting that involvement in there. Is there any way that we can put it into the plan so it becomes more formalized, that it will be something we do, not something that we want to do, but that this current iteration of council wants to do, but something that ought to be done? I can't see, once it's in the plan, any council of the future saying, well, that's a stupid idea, talking to people. But if we have it in there, it definitely has more of an oomph to do it. And I know you and I have had conversations about Neil Leatherdale Park and the Church of the Nazarenes idea to help us update that park. So I think that's a great avenue, and that community engagement as well as the partnerships, all super good ideas. But I think we need to formalize that and put it in the plan at some point as well. Thanks.
Very good. I see no further questions or comments, so I'd ask for a motion, please, for the first item, 903C. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approves policy 903C, playground inspection and maintenance as presented.
Very good. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Good conversation. And now we'll move down to the rescinding of policy 317C, workplace violence, bullying, harassment. All right. Councillor Daly?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Dahl. That council rescind policy 317C, workplace violence, bullying, harassment.
Does council have questions for our CAO? No? I'll call for the, oh, Councillor Cummings?
Off the cuff, does this mean we're allowed to bully people now? Or is this bullying policy and procedure replaced in some other document or control mechanism?
As elected officials, you can bully each other as much as you'd like. That's my official advice through you, Mr. Chair. But no, again, given the changes to legislation and council's inability to regulate its behavior, we have made our respectful workplaces policy as an administrative policy, so it applies only to myself and staff. Of course, I'm special in a lot of ways, so any, obviously, processes involving me would be then passed on to council via the mayor, but for all intents and purposes, council is free reign. We still have something that is in effect for staff relations, which is an OHS requirement, by the way. So.
Where we learn control. Very good. We have a motion on the floor from Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for that. CAO Williams? Page 72, please, Regional Policing Committee. Would you like to start that off, CAO Williams?
I'm just waiting patiently to my right for the last few hours. Has been Director Andrew. He's going to lead us through this one.
Thank you. I never thought it would be my turn, but it's always the best for last, is it not? So anyway, what you have before you today is a request from administration for council to provide direction to the CAO to apply through the Minister of Public Safety for an exemption from the regional framework of the police government's committees that were mandated by the province of Alberta late last year. Initially in the process, they were indicating that communities over 15,000 that were policed by the RCMP or their own municipal police force would form their own committees. Communities within 5,000 to 14,999 would fall under a regional framework where they had the same districts as the RCMP operate in Alberta, and we could participate as a member of one of those regional districts. And communities that are less than would fall under the provincial framework. And that was going along swimmingly until we found that all other regional members in our district all opted out to provide their own committee. So it leaves us as a committee of one, which doesn't work. So we essentially are left with little to no option that we do have to provide ourselves a committee. So we do formally have to apply to the minister for that exemption. And as such, once that's formally approved by the minister, then we will bring it back to the future council for how that framework is decided in terms of reference and everything as far as a committee for oversight of policing. So in a long story short, that's essentially what we're looking for. This is a requirement of the government asking us to provide this because we are the lone entity, last one to formally go through this process. So I'm happy to entertain any questions regarding this.
I'm sorry, I can hear a train outside, but apparently it must be somebody's phone jumping on. No problem. CAO Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just to add one brief thing. Future council has a meeting scheduled on November 20th with the Deputy Premier, who's also the Minister Ellis in charge of this. So one of the topics on the agenda are these regional policing committees. In my opinion, the rollout of this has not been smooth nor logical. For example, we are unable to form a local committee with the Mount View County, for instance, or Nehill County. or the town of Bowden, all three municipalities who form our MPSA region, as far as I'm concerned. Just one example. So one of the topics at that ministers' meeting would be to provide us with a bit more flexibility to invite membership from, let's say, our detachment's actual service area to make the committee a bit more functional and cohesive. So just an FYI, but Justin said most of the information.
Good information. Does council have any questions? Any further questions? Councilor Cummings?
I think the CAO's read my mind because that was pretty much my question. Because when we first took office, there was a community-led municipal policing committee, and it fizzled out for various reasons. But when you talk about the detachment that we have in Olds and our relationship with the senior NCO of that unit and the fact that he's in charge of policing not just Olds but the county surrounding us, Bowden, you said right into Nihil, that seems to me to be the most logical group of communities that should participate in a policing committee overseeing our police detachment. I know that in theory it's the provincial police detachment and the Olds police detachment, and they shall never be the same, but as we know, they are absolutely intertwined completely between their administration and policing. So I would fully support talking to Minister Ellis and getting the new council on board of that as quickly as possible so that we have at least our detachment communities engaged in the same policing committee, if not simply the town of Olds as an alternative.
Thank you. CEO Willett?
I'm sorry, I can't help myself. So one item as well, even though it's not explicit here, is how we share detachment costs amongst what we call MPSA members, which we are, and PPSA members, which are all the counties and towns, villages under 5,000 people. Right now, it's heavily weighted towards the town of Olds, paying the bulk of administrative and capital costs for the detachment operations, just because of the nature of that relationship. So I do believe if we're looking long-term, the RCMP contract expires for Alberta, I believe in 2032. The province has made no bones about them wanting their own provincial detachment. Former Prime Minister Trudeau made a white paper on his last day in office saying that the RCMP should get out of provincial policing. So we can see where this train's going. And I think the more legwork we can do to work with our partners to better understand the funding issues and the cost sharing issues that the town is facing, the better setup we will be. I would say not have to wait till 2032, but to get the province better understanding, like even from the town's perspective, of how this current relationship is little tilted against our favor.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to the director, remind me or clarify for me when I was doing the pre-read, the regional concept was going to be based on, I thought, 4 regions in the province, right? Or am I mistaken?
Yes, that's correct. They were going to have 4 regions, and so the one that we geographically fall into is the southern region, and again, all members have opted to go on their own.
Tia?
Yeah, and actually, truly, again, another supplemental. So to me, this is good news to go on our own, because as I was reading this and digesting this from previous discussions, high level on this path, we get a better voice the smaller the group, I would think, right? Now, as opposed to being one of a very broad, far-reaching region, it seems to me we can make sure that our needs and our concerns are being more adequately addressed with a smaller group. So to me, going down this path seemed to be a natural anyway. But I'm just wondering, and I don't like to speculate in navel gaze and read tea leaves, but if we can't find a dance partner or 2 or 3 within our little community here, what does that mean then? Does that mean then we have a police commission of Olds itself?
Yeah, valid question. So again, one of the frustrations in this is the lack of ability for an MPSA community to partner with a PPSA. So there are provisions that we could partner with another MPSA, such as the town of Didsbury or something to that extent. But again, there's no benefit to us because the detachment doesn't overlap. So yes, I think it is good. I mean, obviously, participating in a regional model doesn't necessarily give your needs being met specifically. And so that was one of the biggest issues with the credibility of this initiative, and the buy-in. And I think that's why every municipality has opted to say, well, we want to do it ourselves. The downfall is, of course, there's added cost. So that's something that's added onto our shoulders, that we are going to have to pay for whatever this structure is, whether it's added meetings and committee work, and the administration of it. The other issue is that one thing that's going to come up is that they haven't mandated as of yet from the province, but their desire is to push away that these committees won't be populated with elected officials. They will be citizen committees where, again, it would be similar as to the other committees that council appoints citizens to, so that would not comprise of elected officials at all. So there is that piece where now there's going to be an enhanced desire or need for communication, that if this committee is the one that is driving the community policing initiatives for the year, such as the that we do annually through council, then there's going to be that trust piece that you're going to have to work with that committee to formulate those or populate that, as opposed to council directly doing it, if you will.
Thank you very much. I would entertain a motion. Councillor Wilson, you haven't really made a motion. It's your turn.
Thank you, Mayor Dodd. I make the motion that council directs the chief administrative officer to request ministerial approval for the town of Olds to withdraw from the Southern Alberta Regional Policing Committee and further explore the option of an independent municipal policing committee.
Final questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? Thank you. Looking forward to that. Excuse me. Page 78, please. Correspondence and information. Item 5A. We have 3 correspondents. Does council wish to speak to any one of these 3? Thank you, Councillor Cummings.
Sorry, I've got lots of notes. No, I'm kidding. So I'd like to address 2, one with a comment and one with a question. So the first one is the notice of fault, I think it's called, that Janie Olson, Debbie Rogers, and Bruce Walton and Katina Walton presented to council. And again, I'm addressing this because my name is on it as one of the, he's pretend somebody is or something or another. I don't know. It's all pretend. But I did have a little conversation to council about this first one that we received, this being the second one, and that it is simply a bunch of jibber jabber. That's a nice way of saying it, I think. The document is a Freeman Society's document that has no legal presence at all. In fact, it's contradictory to the law in pretty much every single way it's written. So I'm just disappointed that this person and the group of people still believe that this is somehow going to make changes, and I encourage the Waltons to again accept the new water meter, the new smart meter to replace their old smart meter, so they can again be part of the water billing service for the town of Olds, because this is just there's nothing to this. It's silliness, and I'm disheartened to see that an electoral candidate's name is on there as well. The question I have, though, is, and I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to read my question, because I don't want to mess this one up. And this question is directly to the CAO. So we face many pressures when it comes to how best we support the town's development, not the least of which is pressure from the province of Alberta. I'd like to highlight a couple of sections from the Premier's letter, or mandate letter, to the new Minister of Municipal Affairs, which is included in our agenda in this section. 2 sections, which are directions she's given to the minister. One is to continue working with municipalities and local businesses to benchmark, measure, and reduce the time it takes to approve permits to create a more attractive business investment environment. And the other one is to review and engage on how the government can support urban development that meets young Albertans' goals of home ownership, et cetera, et cetera. So my question to the CAO is, how does this letter affect our overall concerns with the provincial government mandating or directing how we conduct business, especially with the advances that we've made to our land use bylaw? And how do we justify that our land use bylaw is accomplishing already the issues brought up by the Premier in this letter?
Through you, Mayor Dahl, to Councillor Cummings. Yeah, good question. Very apt timing as well. This mandate letter came out just a couple weeks ago, included today for Council's information. There's a lot of bullet points that are surprising in there, but I could go on another 13-minute rant. I will not, but to stick to the questions on housing. And the one bullet right here, for example, it's one of several, but development of an automatic yes permitting program. This is something that even the former Minister McIver last year at our Alberta municipalities said that within 24 hours, if it meets it, you should approve it. This province is not being as loud as the governments in Ontario and BC, but it's getting to that point as well. It's tough because there certainly is a pushback from residents, but a push forward from the province, albeit silently, to get faster with approvals and to permit more. The land use bylaw passage today, I think, helps us. I don't think, it helps us a lot for setting something like this up. Our previous land use bylaw, this morning's land use bylaw, it was too archaic to ever implement something like an automatic yes program or to enhance approvals outside of what we already had. This land use bylaw, along with other council investments, which you've heard an update last meeting from Director Pedro around our e-permitting system, which we're rolling out internally right now, and it should be live by the end of the year, that will help us. We see the City of Edmonton and other places going to an AI-based model for single-family dwellings, for example, where it's automatic approvals. We're not obviously there yet, but the message is clear. Without saying it to the public directly, because the Premier doesn't like that controversy it provides, just like the education property tax, we have to take that one on. But the province wants houses built faster, wants municipalities out of the way in blocking those approvals. So now it's on, well, fortunately, future councils, the future council, to achieve that balance, that council needs to approve housing faster, more housing, but you also have to take care of those people in your community who don't want to see housing. So, as the French would say, bon chance. But the mandate letter is clear, in my opinion. It's something we've heard before. It's the first time it's been put into writing. How we do that is going to be a bit tricky, but it's something we've been hearing for a while, and why, from administration's point of view, we've been trying to achieve that balance. Obviously, council didn't agree with our weighting of that balance, and you retrenched on the, say, R1 communities, for example, and secondary suites. But honestly, it's just a matter of time. The economics of home ownership and costs are going to do it for us. It's just whether it's this council or the next council, no one can afford a single detached dwelling right now. In 5 years' time, it's going to be even more significant. So getting into more row housing, duplexes, quadplexes, I think this is where this is all heading. It's a very new era. So again, I rant easily, so I'm going to stop there, and hopefully I answered your question, Councillor Cummings. But I see this as, this particular issue, at least they put something on paper to, for us to show people that we are being pushed by higher levels of government to achieve more housing.
For that, CAO Williams, are you ready to push your button there? Yeah, looks like it. Do you have a question? Okay. Okay. Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. And since it's my last meeting and Councillor Cummings has opened a can of worms on this letter, I'm just going to say that I find it ironic, I guess, that in one of the bullet points, it asks for consultation with municipalities and business community to explore and make recommendations for ways to limit excessive property taxes increases for businesses and residents. And yet here we have a province that last year, or this year actually, increased their education tax by 16%. I find that very ironic. Just a comment.
Thank you for your comment.
It's a do as I say, not as I do.
Other questions from around the table? Okay, well, if there's no other questions on this topic, I would like to say the item C, Mountain View County and the Town of Olds highlights for the Intermunicipal Cooperation Committee have, in my opinion, sitting on the committee along with Councillor Blatz and Councillor Wilson, this past 4 years, very fruitful. We've come back, made some great achievements, as you can see, with all the notes and press releases, et cetera, that we have shared with you. I want to thank the Reeve for all the work she did on our behalf to send this into this package to share with our community. Do either Councillor Blatz or Councillor Wilson wish to add to that?
The only thing that I would add, and you commented on it, is to say thank you to the county and to administration of both the county and the town for the hard work and diligence they've put into bringing some of these topics up for discussion and bringing them back to council. And I think that the next ICC committee will have a very fulsome discussion ahead of them. And I think that we're going to move mostly in the right direction. And I think we will see better communication and inter-collaboration between our municipalities.
Thank
And
you,
best of
Councillor
luck
Wilson.
Best of luck to future councils.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And my brief comment is, obviously, Mountain View County is a critical and key partner for us, and still some work to be done. Some good work has been done around our many agreements and sub-agreements, and still some heavy lifting, I think, to be done going forward with the new ICC committee on both sides, in terms of looking at that use of facilities, shared use of facilities, and equally or more importantly, shared cost of those facilities. We all know what costs are doing, our aging infrastructure. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, certainly there'll be some key work to be done in the coming term for both councils on the county side as well as for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, and it makes me feel proud to know that the CAOs, our CAO, Mr. Brent Williams, and the CAO of the Mountain View County have an excellent working relationship, and I'm very proud of where you've brought us to today. Thank you, CAO Williams. If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion, please. Councillor Walsh, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the correspondence and information report ending October 14th, 2025 be received for information.
Very good. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Now we are to page 105. That was quite a jump. And this will be the Chief Administrative Officer report, quarterly report, and end of term review. C.O. Williams, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'm just going to open the program here. And I have two parts to this, and I'm going to move very quickly through the OCAO report. There's not a lot new that's worth rehashing, but certainly at the end, I will break in between the two sections for questions. So the third quarter report, which is named Q2 inaccurately, my bad. But Q3, Office of the CAO report, Invest Olds. You heard a presentation last meeting on Invest Olds and the progress there. Ledge services, bylaws and policies updated since last meeting. I will not belabor those. The organizational review, 94% complete. I'll come back to that in the second half, but a few outstanding, mostly on the infrastructure and human resources side, which tie into some capacity recommendations, coincidentally, in the corporate plan. Reminder about our election days. We're through one advance poll. We have two more coming up, and then we have the big show on Monday, October 20th. I think it's October. Is it Monday? close enough. Mountain View Power, I'll take a moment here. The fall intake is open, closes November 5th. We have about $75,000 available to eligible organizations and projects. This will put us in around the $370,000 range of funds contributed back to the community just through this one stream of Mountain View Power. Storefront improvement program, of the 8 projects approved earlier this spring, 3 have been completed, 4 in progress. 1 is delayed, but we do expect that 1 delay to be finished before the end of calendar year. So if you look, some of the buildings on 50 and 50, you see a little bit of touch that's happening. So I think it's been a well-received program and nice to see. MVP performance, we're seeing still new net subscribers, which our annual target is 3%. So we will meet that this year, but we're seeing the revenue, even though it's stable, the margin's decreasing, that we're getting the customer growth, but even with more new customers, the electricity market specifically is just so competitive that our margin of profit's shrinking. So we do have to look at that quality over quantity approach, and it seems that everyone's chasing quantity right now. So, but looking ahead, giving our increase in subscribers, but also hedged with the lower demand in the market, we don't expect a prudential cash call in 2025. We have ongoing marketing and promotional efforts, and we hope to announce our first Solar Club partnership in Q4 of this year, which is something we haven't been able to tackle quite yet, but certainly an emerging market. For Mountain View Power's sponsorship budget, which is allocated $15,000 annually, it's all but $1,000 spent, and those were the combination of council and administration approvals, or myself approvals, more focused on the economic driver, event tourism side of things, and that's for your own sponsorship budget, of which only $50 remains as well. So, some projects and initiatives, office relocation project. I should say the capital budget. We do plan on presenting a capital budget recap to the new council, of which the office relocation project, the aquatic center retrofit, and the Sportsplex capital for 2025 will be presented as, how did we do, so to speak, from a budget and schedule point of view. So, but everything is on point, and as Director Linderman mentioned last meeting, our capital budget is well within reason. We don't expect any significant deviations from that. Business planning, we just went through that. We'll release the regional multiplex study next week, a partnership between us, the county, the college, the school division, and ORE. We have been finalizing that document for some time now, and we're about ready to go. Highway 27, you may have seen a lot of work happening in the ditches along the signal boxes for the traffic lights along Highway 27. AT and Volker Steven have done a really great job actioning that report from last year, and hopefully once the work is complete, we'll see a much more smoother, logical flow to signalization on Highway 27. And certainly still more work to do there, both from our side and AT side, on improving the infrastructure. And town-owned land, the cemetery land sale has closed. It is no longer ours. We have a lease signed with the Men's Shed of Olds for the small Quonset. We have received an offer on the Habitat for Humanity lot, but that is under review and will be brought to the next council for consideration. And former ME Garage, that's the one left on the list, but we're doing a roof replacement this year as per council's capital budget. And we're going to do a deeper dive on the future use of that building, as administration has not had a great need to utilize it, and we cannot dispose of it given its location next to the North Water Reservoir. So, health and safety, we changed programs, so it's a little wonky in the reporting, but this covers from our summer student season, which, as you can see, we've had higher than we would like, mostly property damage incidents, mostly backing up incidents in equipment. It always happens with seasonal staff, but this one is a bit more active than it was in the last few years. So certainly a bit more training and proactivity has to go into future seasonal work years, but it's somewhat unavoidable at times when you get young people operating new machinery for the first time. And then a slight uptick in the violence harassment side of things, which generally happen at our more public-facing facilities. Reported problem, again, we're trending upwards year over year, which is good to see in the reports. Utilization from the public on this, and they've largely stabilized now in terms of there's no major category outstanding. We'll soon see snow and ice uptick, but outside of that, I think things are working well with our RAP process. And that's it for my OCA report. I do have a second part, but I'll stop there for any questions on what I hope was a pretty brief overview.
No, always well presented. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to the CAO on the reporter problem. Just for clarification and out of curiosity, in the past years that I've been on council, I mean, we've seen the odd question come through, but we don't, as council or the mayor, have access to that report to respond directly to any questions or problems that are posed regarding operations or any other concerns that could be brought forward by our residents, correct?
That's correct. Even time when council sends me a operations complaint, for example, I tend to filter through here as well to try to capture the data as best as possible. But no, this is an administrative function which is automated to go to the specific department or department head person in charge for the specific issue. So.
Thank you for that, because it was commented once before that we as council had been responding to that, and to my knowledge, we never ever had, either as a mayor entity or as a councillor. So I appreciate that answer.
Thank you. Councillor Cummings?
I have what I think is a good question and another silly question. So if you go to page 116, the health and safety statistics, I always get concerned when I see harassment on a list of things that happen to our employees. Is there any way to differentiate between employees harassing employees and employees being harassed by the community? Because in the one case here, we're talking the old aquatic center, that could easily be either way. Public Works, it could also be either way. I know you mentioned one day that when some of our staff were removing some of those nasty signs, they did get accosted. So is there any way we can change the reporting nature of the incident so that it is internal, external harassment or something like that, so we have a better idea of what's going on? I'm concerned about harassment either way, but I think we have a bigger mandate as a council to ensure that internal harassment is looked at differently. The other one there is bite. We shouldn't really be having our Parks and Rec staff biting each other. I think that needs to be looked at with your new policy that you've got, administrative policy that you've put in there. Or we could have animal bite written down there rather than mosquito bite or the bite each other. Just a little bit more clarity so that people viewing the data can understand the data. Internally, I'm sure you know exactly what all that means. But when we present the data to the public, and that's the gist I'm getting to, when we present data to the public, it should be clear and not up for confusion, like our park staff running around the park chasing each other, biting each other, or are they being bit by wild animals or such? Just a bit of levity on the last day.
I'm sure it was a dog, but you've got a good point. You never know. This is true. Could be a counselor. Come on. All right. How about anybody else? Any questions for CAO? Very good. Well done. Thank you. We'll get a motion on the floor, please. Councillor Blatz? Oh. Yeah. He's.
Keep going if
Yeah,
it's easier.
If you're ready and steady, let's go.
Okay, so this one is more of my flavor. I've been doing this a long time now, so at the end of every term, I try to give a brief reflection on that term for council, and obviously as a reminder to you that even though the topics that oftentimes are the most recent or the loudest are the ones you focus on the most, but try to give perspective on the progress, challenges, opportunities made in the last 4 years, and take time to thank each of you for your service to the town. It's not something that a lot of people do. Put their name forward, get elected, serve 4 years, and take the good with the bad. And it's something we need more of in our local democracies. And I think you all deserve a lot of credit for doing that. And some of you have been doing a very long time, and my respect and admiration to you. And I think those who came before you and will replace you will often find the job more difficult than when it was with a degree of separation. But that's the beauty of public service. We're all a bit out there in a few ways. So again, I won't belabor this too much, but feel free to stop me. But I just want, for my purposes to you, and then to the incoming council even, to go through a few highlights. So, did that already. Framed around your strategic plan, which obviously we don't revisit it on a weekly or monthly basis, but it is something, even with the corporate plan and integrated into our RFDs, administration tries to pay attention to make that connection. I think every council comes in with an idea of improving communication, engagement, fiscal sustainability, building relationships. And it's not to say that it was a cop-out in your regard. I do believe that when you took office, that those were the significant challenges that you felt facing the town, and this report's built around that. But for context first, I think 4 key obstacles have to be understood in order to properly understand this council term. 2 of which were known when I arrived on May 30th, 2022. You made no bones about it to me, even in the job interview, about ONET, and I Googled that myself, so I was able to figure it half out, of course. But the organizational review, and that when you got elected in the fall of 2021, and when I came here a few months after that, you made it very clear to me that you were concerned about the state of the organization, and that was found to be true. It was not in a great spot administratively, and I think council did a lot of work and allowed me to do a lot of work to hopefully see progress. 2 of those obstacles were not quite known. As I mentioned, 2 weeks into my term, we were pumping sanitary water into the farmer's field to the north of us. We did that 6 times in a 14-month span. We did not understand our I&I problems. And then Sundial in December of 2023, when we got the news release that Sundial was closing shop here, even though it was about a $750,000 total revenue boon to the town. Over those 3 years they were in operation, or 4.5 years rather, the $500,000 or so that we lost from that was very difficult to, I don't want to say survive, but certainly keep on funding core operations. So that context is pretty essential to understand the last 4 years of this term. But back to the strat plan. So open dialogue was goal number 1, and that is a moving target. It's not an end game where you reach perfect communication and perfect community engagement. It is a process where it ebbs and flows. People are happy, people are not. But I think some of the actions you've done here were done sincerely. Did we miss the mark sometimes? Absolutely. But I think this council has done a good job in admitting mistakes and correcting them and moving forward with new ideas, opportunities, technology, whatever it might be, to improve that. On the staff side, more my domain, but what you've allowed me to do and given me direction and budget to do is to improve some pretty fundamental things here. Simple stuff like biannual engagement surveys, anonymous engagement surveys I should add, funding our personnel policy, compensation reviews, benefits reviews, and updating some shifts into how we communicate with staff, to the corporate plan, which again came out of that org review, which came out of that need to improve dialogue, whatever it might be. And I do think we're in a much better spot than where we were 4 years ago. Governance side, again, this council has more than respected that separation between operations and governance, and I hope that I've paid homage to council's authority and direction and need to know and provide me with the appropriate feedback, and to take one of these two, number 8, crime reduction, something very modest, very quick that happened in several years ago when you redirected the $140,000 of our RCMP budget into a crime reduction position and focused on that through your key priorities with the RCMP. We are seeing now clear return on that investment, in my opinion. that that would not have happened, and I don't want to get specific, but there's been several over the last 12 months that without council funding specifically a position and giving that direction, we wouldn't be seeing the benefits of reduced crime related to drug and property crime enforcement in town. So that's how governance matters. It just takes time, which no one likes to wait. Relationships, this was perhaps the number one comment I've received individually since I've got here from all councilors, that you want to see not just existing relationships improved, but new relationships formed, and whether it be with the county or through our economic development efforts, Olds College, that has happened. And if we pick on one of these again, the health committee, this was the topic du jour, perhaps with regards to provincial priorities when I got here. The council reformed the Healthcare Recruitment Attraction Committee, of which council has been appointed to since then. You've lobbied the government, you kept it top of mind. But again, things take time. But now we're seeing something large like a new clinic opening in town. Was that directly related to our efforts? No, probably not directly, but I believe it helped setting that need, establishing that need. You see the PCN, Peaks to Prairies, taking one of the committee's ideas and making a centralized wait list amongst all of the clinics. That was an original, proposal that facilitated it. So that, to me, the healthcare portfolio, even though we have challenges in our hospital, has been a success attributed to council's efforts. Everyone's favorite, fiscal responsibility. On the left side are the certain problems that we're all aware of. And even though we're getting direction from the province not to increase property taxes, they're also cutting our funding by $1 million annually on the capital side too. So a lot of things has happened in the last 4 years. But in the last 4 years, this council's taken on no new debt. First term in probably 5 terms, so you can say that. Introduced the base budget related to service levels, which we still have to build on. And then facility reviews and investments, taking care of what we own instead of looking at building new. And with the aquatic center or the sportsplex or improvements to Rotary Park, those have been important things that will show investment or returns on investment. To get more specific, obviously ONET was a huge point in career, November 2024. I remember it like it was 11 months ago. And people will disagree with you for this, and so should they, because it's a very emotionally charged topic, and it is what it is. But a decision was made, and that was something that had to be made, a decision. But the focus has now shifted. I know from my time I feel like a new man, not having to handle that process, along with a lot of other talented individuals on the various sides of the coin. And debt position is now improving because of that. When debt is not just what you have, your servicing cost, it's your ability to mitigate your risk. That if your debt limit's exhausted, you cannot have new debt, and that is dangerous for municipalities carrying billions of dollars in assets. Infrastructure side, when you took office, you were faced with a $2.4 million annual loss in your utility system. Today, I updated it slightly, and these are conservative estimates, but roughly down almost $1 million in savings and costs that attributed to not focusing on the ribbon-cutting, sexy new projects. It is getting back to basics. No one gets elected on fixing the sewer pipes, unfortunately, but hopefully you change that narrative. It's just not one of those sexy things, but you have to fix your poop pipes. I think people can say it more eloquently than that, I'm sure. Long-term planning, again, right from this council. When we started, we had no asset management program, little capital planning done, and still deteriorating assets. But today, it's a multi-year work in progress, but we have capital plans that the new council will see integrated into budget more robust than you ever seen, largely helped with our asset management coordinator. Internal work order system, which 2 years in the making, we've been building that. And as I mentioned, our facilities and equipment, replacing what you own, the not flashy stuff has been great. On the fiscal side, again, debt, you were faced with 95% debt utilization when you started. Today it's around 65%, and we have a plan to get it down to closer to 35% by the end of next term. Mountain View Power, this has been perhaps my personal favorite one that I didn't even know what it was when I started here. Part of the Olds Institute, as we try to transition everything into the town. In those early days, we did separate that, and today we're not just growing the subscriber base, but we have well over $500,000 invested back into the community through the grants program, through the health committee sponsorship, through the public art dollars, through the public events like Canada Day or Olds Fashion Christmas, and then sponsorships, whether it be the large ones like Oldstoberfest or the provincial volleyball championships or the music festivals, et cetera, et cetera. It's doing a lot of good. And I think that was always the intention, even from the early days, 15 years ago, of Mountain View Power. And that's going to be, I think, not just a legacy of this council, but it has a lot of opportunity given it, with the right inputs to do a lot of good for us. Now, economic development, the broad stroke when I got here was it was a newly created department after some retirements and bringing on Sandra, but we also had near zero population growth, which I know some people prefer. I don't want to say that, but in this business, if you're not growing, you're probably going the opposite direction. And with less than 20 annual housing starts and we owned a lot of land with a lot of buildings we didn't really use. And in the last 4 years, I won't get into all the ECDEV acronyms, the draft strategy that we presented last week, but we have our housing, 2 back-to-back years, our highest housing starts on record, and both mainly in the purpose-built rental, but we're seeing it open up with another announcement coming this week. Commercial growth, we see some new commercial lands going up, but also some commercial land activation with our soon-to-be officially announced Loblaws land partnership or deal, and there's a lot of opportunity over the next 10 years to get a realistic plan in place to see our both our commercial side and with the cemetery land subdivision and sale, the industrial land activation moving in the right direction. So for the next council, now when we go through the orientation process, whoever the 7 might be in front of us, this is how we'll generally lead it, that suggestions that even though we have progress, there's still lots of work to do. Our water and sanitary system is still vastly underfunded, making up that capital deficit of the last 40 years or so. It needs to be a priority. Our water reservoir, specifically our North Water Reservoir, only has about 7 years of life left. It can't go any longer. Sanitary lift stations, we have a few of those. 2 to 3 of them are aging out in need of expansion, multi-million-dollar projects that require years of planning. Our wastewater commission, Councillor Ryan has done a great job up until this afternoon of keeping us updated on the progress being made there, but we have some other topics within the wastewater commission model and the long-term feasibility of membership in that commission to talk about. And the Sportsplex renewal, this is a big one as well. At least in the next 5 years, $4 million, from a very modest point of view, probably closer to 6 required that facility to keep operating for the next 10 years. Finances, asset management, debt management, reserve building, no need to elaborate on those. I think dev and tax-based growth, we need to increase our tax base. We can't tax nor cut our way out of our current predicament. I think growth is the only way possible. Unfortunately, you don't get things like commercial growth on Highway 27 unless you have population growth, which goes hand in hand with a few other things we've done today. But things we're hearing from the community, Uptown Olds, we have a great downtown core that needs to be protected, and you need to do that in certain ways. Commercial sector growth, as I mentioned, event tourism, facility utilization. We have some amazing facilities here in town, and I think we can do a better job in getting people to come here and use them and spend dollars, but all things that our ECDEV strategy will talk about. Emergency services, RCMP staffing levels and costs, which was touched on briefly earlier. That's going to be a massive issue over the next 5 years, I would say. provincial policing. 2032 is the deadline. We've seen over 100% increases in the cost of fire apparatus. Fortunately, we are not in the immediate window, but by 2028, we have to replace one, and then it's kind of one for every 2 to 3 years after that. So we have to figure out a better plan because we can't afford to replace. A fire truck was already expensive, and now we can't afford to replace what we have. So we have to look at partnerships, we have to look at extending the life of assets, and we have to figure out something with the province. So very complicated issue that has no clear objective. EMS response. We're seeing an uptick in our EMS calls. Everyone is. What's the future of that? It's something we don't get compensated for, which obviously we'll never want to charge people for showing up to help them when they're in medical distress, but it puts pressure on local tax dollars, and it's not something we're mandated to do, but we're seeing a larger role from all municipalities having to deliver this service. And then partnerships. I do believe that local, regional, and provincial, whatever it might look like, that's the only way forward. We have to get better at working together, whether that's through recreation or fire services or policing or lobbying. Money's getting tight, so resources in all respects. So I think that will be pitched to the next council too, opportunities to strengthen what we have and look for new partnerships also. With that, the last meeting of the term. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll have a little bit more to say for departing members at the end of the meeting, but for now, you have my thanks and gratitude. Well done.
I think we owe you an applaud for all the work you've done. Thank you. Well done. I'm lost for words. Yeah, I don't know. It's hiding somewhere. Does anyone have any further comments? Go ahead, Councillor Blatz.
Well, I don't know if I'm being early or if I'm being premature, but I was also going to take this time to, this opportunity to thank my fellow colleagues sitting around this table and Mayor Dahl. I think this past 4 years we've had to make some very tough and some very not very popular decisions, and we've done it and we've stood by them, and it's very obvious from C.O. Williams' report that we've made strides forward, and I really hope that the new council can continue this momentum that we've started, and I hope to potentially be one of those people, but one does not know. And anyway, I also want to say thanks to you, C.O. Williams, and thank you to our legislative coordinator, Marcy McKinnon, and our CEO and Council Admin Assistant, Shyla Knoll, as well as the leadership team and all of staff for their dedication and commitment that I've seen over the past 4 years. And I know that you will continue to be proud to work for the town of Olds, and you will continue on to be the best employees and provide the best service that you can to our residents. So again, thank you to everyone, and good luck in future endeavors.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that everybody would like to say something, but I just want to say that starting in 1990, taking council minutes and being the recording clerk, and then ending up 16 years there, and then this last 17 years as mayor has just been a privilege and an honor that this community, my husband and I always say we owe this community so much. Moving here when we were homesteading and lost everything, and they just picked us up like we were their family. So yeah, thank you. I'm at peace, and I look forward to the results at the new election, and there's no better CAO to get inaugurated with than Brent Williams, so we did a good pick. When we went around the circle quite a few times, but it was well worth the ride. Thank you, sir. Okay, well, and of course your staff and Marcy. Yes, thank you. I could go on and on too, but I just get the goosebumps, and I'm just excited for who's coming on board. Looking forward to the future. Can I get a motion for the CAO report, please? Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Before I make the motion, I just want to also thank all of council for the support over the years. It's been up and down. We've had some big decisions we've had to make, and I'm glad that we made them. And also, clawed back on things where we saw that wasn't going to work, and we made the adjustments. So I think that's great. One thing I always say to people about council is this council has been very flexible, and I think being able to adjust to the changing times, even if they spun on a dime, has been really a tribute to this council and to our CAO for pointing out things that we've had to deal with. Some of them have been pretty tough, for sure. So I just wanted to end on that note, and thank you very much to their CEO and to all of council. I'll make the motion that council accepts the office of the Chief Administrative Office, OCAO, quarterly report as presented.
Very good. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Hallelujah to that. We do have to move into a closed session at this time. So I will make a note here that when council goes into a closed session for continued participation in the virtual council meeting, stay online in the live stream meeting platform, and the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic. When the graphics are removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. So what I'm looking for right now, please, from one of my counselors, is to make a motion to move into the closed session. I'll need a, okay. Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, thank you. I move that we move into closed session. Item 1, Access to Information Act 19, Section 19, disclosure harmful to a business interest of a third party. And I think we'll just leave it like that. There's 2 of them. For board updates, yes.
Yes, for board updates, and the time is 3:36 p.m. And we will be taking a 5-minute recess. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you for your time here, and I wish you all the best of Welcome back. We are now in the Rise and Report. We have reconvened back to regular council meeting. And I would ask Deputy Mayor Ryan for a motion, please.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. I move the council accepts board updates from wastewater and water commissions as presented.
Thank you. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Ryan. I don't have anything further from that, so I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. All right. Thank you. CEO Williams.
Thank you. And as on a non-agenda item, but as closing, yourself, Councillor Walsh and Councillor Ryan, as departing elected officials, not running again, we do have a small token of appreciation that will be brought in shortly. So if you don't mind getting a photo with myself and shaking hands, smiling, it'd be much appreciated. And but after this, we adjourn the meeting. We have to do this in open session, but just wanted to. No, it's your call. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, and the meeting I will adjourn at 4 p.m. And I thank all viewers and all people that are interested in our political careers, and someday I hope you are sitting in this chair. So bless you all. Good evening.